Hello, this is Dan Alford, and you're listening to Dan's Cadre of Experts. Last weekend, I happened to go to the Houston Safari Club, and I stopped by the Gun Owners of America booth, and only in America could you stop at a booth like that and get a full capacity AR-15 magazine. And not only did I get this magazine, I also met an interesting person. And Wes Virdell is the Texas director for the Gun Owners of America?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Texas director.
Welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
All right, so this is kind of unique. Usually, most of the folks I have here on the Cadre are old friends, and I know them fairly well. I know enough about you to be intrigued, but I don't really know your past.
Yeah.
Give us a little history here.
So basically, Texas has been my homestead my whole life, and
What part?
Brady. That's in the very center. If you were to throw a dart at the very center of Texas, you would hit Brady, Texas. It's a small town. That's what I grew up in. And you watch a lot of these old movies where, you know, small town fun and all that. That's what we had growing up. And anyways, went to college, jumped around different colleges, different majors. Maybe the ADHD thing I've heard you talk about. And,
I got it.
Yeah, me too. And anyways, even went to Universal Technical Institute here in Houston, graduated from there, went and got a real job, decided I want to go back to college, did that. And then I ended up going to basic training in the Air Force 2 months after September 11th happened. Got selected for, and actually they basically said, hey, you did good on your ASVAB. You can pick whatever job you want. So I picked to work on intercontinental ballistic missiles. And for those,
a life skill that you can employ in the real world.
But anyways, I did that. Ended up 3 years in Cheyenne, Wyoming at F.E. Warren, and got to do something never thought, being from a small town, that I have the opportunity to do, which is, for those that don't know, ICBMs are missiles with nuclear warheads.
Intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yeah, and we were part of Space Command, which is now Space Force, which is kind of cool. And then I transferred to a special duty as a military training leader, and that one was very interesting. That was going from a maintenance job into a leadership position, and I got there very early in my career. Most people don't get to do that till 5 or 6 years in, sometimes 10, and I got to be there on my 3-year anniversary for that job. Just luck and who you know kind of thing. Just people I knew the right people and got me over there. And then
No talent and ability.
No.
Okay, good.
No. No, I think I'm fairly competent. But after my enlistment ended, which was in 2008, I wanted to move back to Brady. I wanted my kids, so homesick from the moment I joined the Air Force, and I wanted my kids to grow up the same way I got to grow up. I knew if I took a contracting job, doing the skill set that I had from the Air Force, that I'd kind of be at the mercy of whatever company I worked for. And I really wanted my kids to grow up in that small town. We have a family business that's been open for a long time, heavy truck repair. Right? Yes, sir, yeah. And I've got all the scars to prove it. And
Is that from driving or wrenching?
From wrenching, yeah. I've got, on all my knuckles, I've got some pretty long scars. But maybe that just means I'm a bad mechanic if I slip off a lot. But I wanted my kids to see how a small businesses ran. I wanted them to be very competent, because I feel a lot of kids aren't getting some of those experiences these days that lots of people had back in the day. And so then I moved back to Brady in 2008 and did that. In 2014, some friends of mine said, hey, we want to start a trucking company. Do you want to help us out? So we partnered up and did that. Very quickly, they got cold feet on the trucking. Great guys.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, and we're all still friends, but the money didn't look as good to them, you know, and there were some issues with the the first driver we hired was not a productive guy, and the people you hire is what makes or breaks your company. And anyway, so I bought them out and did pretty well with the trucking. I've ran a few trucks over the years from 2014 to now, and then I got into activism in 2011. When I say activism, I was looking at gun laws, and I was like, hey, in Wyoming I could open carry. Why can't I open carry here in Texas?
Okay. This audience may not know what open carry means.
So open carry means in plain sight. You're not having to hide the weapon from anybody, and this is going to be a hot topic, right?
Oh, yeah. You and I have to argue about that one. So let's rewind to the whole concept of carrying weapons in Texas.
Yeah.
When was that? Around 90?
95.
95.
Yeah.
They passed the Concealed Carry Act.
Yeah.
And that was Charles Cotton that wrote that, as I recall.
I think that's right, yeah. And it was, I can't remember the lady's name, the Luby's shooting that happened down in Killeen, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
She had left her gun in her purse in the car because wasn't supposed to carry it. Went in there with her parents, guy came in, murdered a bunch of people, murdered her parents, and she was defenseless, and she helped craft that bill, and then she ended up becoming a state rep herself after that. So
yeah. So that was 95. We got the right to carry concealed weapons. I think Florida was the pioneers in this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Right now they're lagging behind on some things.
Well, but they, as I recall, they had it first, and so I went ahead and took the class right around then, and concealed weapon class. And just to be clear, I've never drawn a weapon, never needed a weapon.
Yeah.
By my calculation, you need one every 4 lifetimes. You just don't know which lifetime it'll be. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward to now, and you were concerned that not only did you want to carry concealed, you wanted to carry openly.
Yeah, and started looking at the laws. And back in 2008 when I got out, I was okay. So let's say this: I started off as a Bush guy. That's the first president I ever voted for. Went to the military thinking we were going to fight the bad guy, and there were bad guys, but Ron Paul started kind of turning the light bulb on me.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, and he's from this area, right? So,
right. Yeah.
And so,
Eagle Lake, I believe.
Watching Ron run for president, he would say things that were completely outside of the narrative that we're hearing on mainstream media and everything like that. And it makes you think. And that's what I like about Ron is he's like Thomas Paine, common sense, rights man from back in the late 1700s, say kind of shocking all things. But what it does is a whole bunch of people started paying attention. Like they weren't just following the narrative that was being pushed out there, and they started questioning things. I was one of those guys. And going into starting at 2008, I started sending emails, making phone calls to my legislators, and my friends, the same guys I did the trucking company with, they would all give me a hard time. Something would happen in politics, and they were like, "What are you going to do, write an email?" Making fun of me a little bit. And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I'm going to do."
Should.
And it was pretty critical. We're finding that, I started learning more. Hey, there's more I can do than just write emails. Started going to the Capitol. There was a bunch of activists in 2011 when the open carry push kind of really got attention. And so that was my first time going to the Capitol, going to the committees. And it's been a progress. It's not like I instantly knew the first time I went to the Capitol what's going on or how to do or anything like that. But over this 12-year progress to now, I now get to be the state director for Gun Owners of America. And I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm a registered lobbyist in Texas. But it's for gun rights, so.
We'll let you slide on that. So let's talk I guess these aren't competitive organizations. Let's talk about the others. I'm also a member of the National Rifle Association. I'm a life member of your organization.
Yes, sir.
And I'm a life member of the Texas Rifle Association. So why do we need 3 of them?
I think it's kind of divide and conquer. If the more we have, I think the better we can get things accomplished, the more people we can reach. Because there's going to be people that fit into the NRA category that we're not going to probably reach. And then in the GOA category, there's people, we tend to be far more activist related. NRA probably is more on the legal side is what they would probably be. You could describe them as approaching. But we are not non-confrontational. We're the opposite. We're confrontational. Confrontational Politics was written by our founder, H.L. Richardson, back in 1976. And if anybody hasn't read that book, I highly recommend it. We're taught, and this book basically we're taught as Christians or as good people that we're supposed to be kind of compliant, go along to get along, not question things. And I don't mean it like in a soft way, but I mean like we're basically taught if somebody asks us a question, then we answer the question. Well, the other side, the anti-gunners, don't do that at all. They don't care what the truth is. They don't care what the facts are, and they're willing to distort everything to push their narrative. So we have to be more aggressive in doing the right thing and exposing what's going on. And that's what GOA has been really successful at. It's been a formula since 1976 that has I would say the hardcore gun guys absolutely know who we are and like what we do. So, and that's where I came from. I'm in the hardcore category of rights, and not just gun rights, but all rights. And we look at, the Bill of Rights. That is, our rights didn't become because the Bill of Rights exists. The Bill of Rights exists because our rights existed before that. So, yeah.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Not only do I like Ron Paul, I think his son is remarkable. Thank goodness he's in
I wrote his name in 2016 in the general election. I couldn't bring myself to. I'm not an anti-Trumper, just to be clear. But in 2016, I was not on board at all and with Trump, and I actually wrote Rand Paul's name in on the ballot. So And my dad was furious at me. So
yeah, I'm a little disappointed myself, but
yeah,
but that's okay.
Yeah.
So what's your current mission in Texas and nationwide? What are you working on?
So in Texas right now, the current status is we've got a lot of bills that are coming up. We've got about 15 to 17 bills that we're really kind of pushing for. One is we have the 18 to 20-year-old ruling by the judge.
What's that?
So right now, currently constitutional carry in Texas, you've got to be 21 and up. Judge Mark Pittman out of the Northern Texas Court of Appeals ruled that you can't. It's unconstitutional to tell someone between 18 and 20. He basically says the Second Amendment does not just have an age discretion, and therefore he puts the mark on adults. He stops it at 18, but he says 18 to 20 should not be restricted on constitutional carry also. So we have a bill drafted for that. We have a legislator that has that bill, but one of the problems that presents itself is if we present that bill, they could go in and amend it through the process, and it could end up coming out worse than we want. Mm-hmm. Whereas we currently have the judge ruling right now that states, hey, you can't restrict 18 to 20-year-olds. So if we leave it at that for now, then we don't have a chance of messing it up. But if we submit the bill, we could mess that up. So the idea, and there's a group of attorneys here that we use from Walker Taylor Law Firm, Armed Attorneys on YouTube is what they're known as, and anyways, they basically are also on board with, it's really kind of their position is, don't mess it up right now. Let's leave it as is, and let the judge, the standing stay. I'm trying to say that correctly. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so, but let's let the ruling by the judge stay right now and not mess with it, and then we'll look at it later if something comes up. We also have a bill for license to carry for 18 to 20-year-olds. So there's some people that are more comfortable with that. I know there are people that don't like the idea of 18 to 20-year-olds carrying. We were at an event last night where Kyle Rittenhouse was at, and I had dinner with him back in October, and I had mentioned to him about the 18 to 20-year-old constitutional carry. And he's 19. I think he's 20 now, but or he was 19 at that time. And he says, I wish I could carry a gun. And so here's a guy that's 19, and irregardless of what people think of what he did prior to that, he's got death threats all the time against him. And at 19 years old, he can't carry something to defend himself from those threats. And then if you also look at, let's say you're a 19-year-old female, and you started dating the wrong guy who turns out to be abusive, harassing, and you want to carry, you can't carry right now as a 19-year-old female and to protect yourself. And then another, John Cornyn, who I'm not a fan of, I'll be direct, and GOA's been really strong about calling out John Cornyn. He's made many anti-gun statements and votes over the years. This particular one, he voted for a bill called Make Communities Safer Act. They always make these bills sound really good, but it restricts 18 to 20-year-olds from buying a rifle or a shotgun. And so basically they can go buy it, but now they've got a minimum of a 10-day background delay, and then most of them that we're seeing are going to 20 days. So the 10-day will come around, and then the ATF says, okay, we're going to extend this another 10 days. So if you're a female that wants to buy a shotgun or a rifle and keep it at your house because you think an ex-boyfriend is going to come do harm to you, you're going to be stuck waiting 20 days if you go through the federal process of getting it. Now in Texas, you can do private transactions, so they could possibly find someone that's willing to sell it to them in a private transaction. But anyways, basically we believe a right delayed is a right denied. And there is a case where a girl had to wait on a background check, and she was murdered in between that time of her buying the gun and getting approved on the background check. So, yeah.
I'm all in on the 18-year-olds. I mean, what's the precedent? In the military, do they let 18-year-olds carry rifles?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Isn't that odd? Yeah.
Yep. So
they encourage it, don't they?
Yeah. It. You know what's interesting? So this gets into, and I guess we'll cover lots of topics here. But when I was in the military, it was frustrating because we weren't allowed to carry our guns on base. So like even if we wanted to, and living in Wyoming, we had lots of public land to go to and shoot, and we couldn't take our guns. We couldn't keep them on base in our housing, and then we couldn't leave base with them, go shoot, and then come back on base. We were supposed to keep them in the armory on base. And I thought, how is it that the U.S. military would trust me
with an ICBM?
Yeah, and but they won't trust me carrying a shotgun off base, to go out to the woods and goof off a little bit or something like that, and then back on base. That was pretty frustrating. And then in 2000, man. I'm getting too old where all the years mixed together, but 2012, 2016, somewhere in there. Do you remember there was a bunch of shootings? Recruiter's office were shot up. One of the recruiters got in trouble because he shot back. He had a gun in his desk, and he actually got in trouble for that. Well, now if you go to a recruiter's office, when I joined in 2001, you walked right in the recruiter's office, you sign up, do your processing, whatever. Well, now you go to a recruiter's office, and I don't know if it's this way across the country, but I assume it is. The door is locked, and it has a keypad on it, and you have to basically knock on the door or get their attention. They'll come and open the door for you, and then when they go in, they're not allowed to carry guns in their offices or anything like that. And most of the time, these recruiters have like big glass windows where you can see them sitting in there. And I'm thinking, you're making it unsafe for that recruiter that's sitting in there. And then anyone that wants to really do harm, that glass door, that keypad or whatever is not going to do any good at stopping somebody from doing something bad to them.
And they know it's a gun-free zone.
Yeah, and I asked one of the recruiters one day, and I asked him, I said, hey, what? They don't let you carry. Now you've got a locked door that does no good. And I got to be careful what I say, but let's just say you can sit on a bench and watch them put the combo code in, right? Like, it's not hard. If you want to do harm, you can get in that door pretty easily. But I asked him, I said, what are y'all supposed to do? Are you supposed to fight back? And he's like, no, they tell us to hide behind the desk or hide behind a bench. And they have, some of the recruiters' offices have AR-500 plated benches in there that they're supposed to hide behind. And
bulletproof steel.
Yeah, and it's really sad that the military is teaching our active duty members to hide instead of fight back. So
I'm a different generation. So back in the 70s, I was going to college in Waco, and they wouldn't let me keep guns in the dorm.
Yeah.
But they just said you had to drop them at the police station. And then anytime you wanted them, we'd go to the police station on the campus there, pick them up, but there were never any violence. There was never any violence on campus. So something's changed, and we can argue about what that is. But
I think it's mental health.
But it wasn't the presence of guns that encouraged violence, because other than not having it in my dorm, unless I went to pick it up from the police station, I wasn't the only student there that had weapons.
Yep, it definitely a different world. When I grew up out of we lived in the country, but it was a small community. There's a lot of houses kind of around us, and anyways, we all had guns. We would go out. I remember, it's like still a visual memory for me, but we would go out in the fields, and one of my friends would have a shotgun, and dragonflies would pop up, and he would shoot them like he just kind of poof. But those are the days.
We still had gun racks and pickups in Austin back in high school.
Yeah,
nothing, but it was a less violent time. So we could argue about that one.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the military on restricting their service members that they've trained from carrying.
The fiasco they had in Fort Hood could have been prevented if somebody had a weapon.
I had a friend that was at that when that happened. So and he ended up getting into politics too. So we called him Eddie Ray, and he was a fast runner, is what I remember from high school. But anyways, so.
Let's talk about, let's argue for a little bit.
Okay, because I'm open to that.
One thing that I don't approve of that you've accomplished is open carry.
Yeah.
And I don't see the point of it. I think it's unnecessary provocation. I think that, I think it's better for everybody to wonder who has a gun.
Yeah, and
so what's the point?
So I'm 50 to 75% with you on that, but there is a study that the Department of Justice did, and in that study, they interviewed people that were incarcerated for violent offenses.
Yep.
And they basically asked several series of questions, and basically what were you looking for when you committed the crime? What stopped you from committing a crime? And what they were looking for when they committed the crime is, and it's kind of weird because you're going to think, well, I don't know that some of these people are even thinking when they commit a crime, but targeted crimes they were looking for females, they were looking for elderly, they were looking for small in stature,
defenseless.
Yep, not paying attention, and unarmed. Those were the 5 things. And then the number one answer for why they didn't commit a crime on somebody was the open sight of a firearm. And so in a way, you could argue that open carry actually stops some crimes from happening. I don't know how you would measure that in a metric or anything like that, but so I think there is that side of it for the open carry that's good. But when you get into can you be targeted? Yep, somebody that's intent on doing something,
they're going to take the open carry guy out first.
Yeah, you always take out the biggest threat first. So
well, I noticed you didn't wear a gun openly today. So you passed the law, but you don't
I do a mix of both. So
Do you?
yeah,
Okay.
and I kind of think in our society it's healthy to have a little bit of both. Probably more concealed carriers than open carriers, but the open carrier doesn't bother me. There are some. This is just personal. This is not GOA's position or anything, but sometimes people are trying to look too tactical out in public.
Frequently.
Yeah, and that's my personal opinion is it's not a good approach. I mean, I believe in the freedom for somebody to do that, even if it makes me uncomfortable. That's a great thing about liberty. But yeah, I tend to advise people if I can, hey, don't try to look tactical. You need to blend in as much as you can. But there's nothing to me. I don't have a problem with open carry. So, but I understand where a lot of people come from on the argument. So.
And then even the constitutional carry. And I was quite proud to tell people that in Texas, people with a concealed weapons license statistically were 1/7 as likely to commit a crime as the rest of the population.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing statistic.
Oh, no, that's great. And I love being part of that group that is 1/7 as likely to commit a crime.
Yeah.
But
cops know that, and they don't, when they know you got an LTC, this is an outstanding citizen.
They got somebody that's doesn't have a record,
Yeah.
on and on. Went to the trouble of training and taking the test and paying for the license. So these are all positive things. And so why was constitutional carry a good thing?
So for me, looking at constitutional carry, along the same way I was looking at open carry, when we were trying to push for open carry, it was not allowed in 6 states.
Should we define constitutional carry?
Yeah, we can do that.
Go ahead.
So constitutional carry, the true version of it is that the government, if you believe the Second Amendment is a restriction on the government and including state governments, that they don't have a right to control what you wear, when you wear it, or how you wear it. So, and anyways, we have restrictions still on it, so it's still considered permitless carry instead of constitutional carry. We still all call it constitutional carry, but I think the technical term would be permitless carry.
Which means I no longer have to go to the bother of
yes, sir, of getting permission from the government, and that's where I come from on that. So the open carry, 44 states allowed it. 6 states didn't, right? I'm doing my math there. So I don't want to do a Joe Biden and say 53 states or something. But
there's that many that have constitutional.
That had open carry at the time. And so we were one of 6. We were categorized with California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Florida. And anyway, so I remember thinking, like, why are we categorized with those people on that law? And then 2015, they said it would never get passed. We got it passed. But then we get to constitutional carry, and the momentum, once open carry passed, like the activists saw, hey, this really works, and activists started coming every session, 2017, 2019. I ran against a guy for office that wouldn't support constitutional carry in 2017 and 2019, and that was one of the main reasons why I ran against him, because
he would not support it.
Right, and he would send out all of his campaign material saying that he's a pro Second Amendment supporter, and to clarify, there's pro-gun and there's pro-2A. There's lots of guys that like guns, but they don't necessarily fully agree with the 2A.
Yeah, we don't all fit into one category at all, do we?
And anyway, so let's see here. Back up to constitutional carry 2021.
Yeah.
We look at it, for me, as a hardcore freedom-based guy, inalienable rights. I would say that if I have to ask permission from the government to carry the firearm, then it's not a right, it's a privilege at that point. And so that's where we came from on that. So, and statistically, there were 26 other states that had constitutional carry before us, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And statistically, those states didn't have problems with open carry, with constitutional carry. They didn't have an increase in crime because of it. In fact, they actually had a lot lower crime. And some people could argue that has to do with the dynamics of the type of population or the mentality that's going on in those groups in those states. But because every state has kind of like a different mentality going on. But there was no statistical evidence that there was going to be a problem. And what was interesting, so every year a lot of the police unions show up and testify against our gun bills. Not law enforcement, but police unions. And police unions oftentimes have a different perception of our rights than the law enforcement. Law enforcement most of the time is really great as far as they generally share our rights or believe in the same rights we do. We find the police unions, a lot of times they're there advocating for the police, and I'm all for that, but they're advocating against our rights on some issues. And so they would show up and they would, on the open carry, I remember this clear as day, they would say it's going to be blood in the streets, it's going to be the Wild West, and then we would have people getting up giving testimony saying that's not going to happen, that doesn't happen in the other states. And then
it didn't happen when we had the concealed weapons.
Right. Yeah. And
passed in '95.
Yeah. So the open carry ended up passing, and then I remember I think it was 2017. We're at a committee hearing, and the Democrat chairing the committee. We had a Democrat chairing it that would kill most of our bills, but the police union's up there again saying we don't support constitutional carry. It's going to be blood in the streets, Wild West. And the Democrat chair actually stopped them and said, "Hey, you said this about open carry and it didn't happen, but now you're saying it about constitutional carry. Why do you believe it's going to happen this time?" And just shut them up right there, like put them right on the point. And then 2021. We were very fortunate. The Speaker appointed a very pro-Second Amendment guy to the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee. And when he did that, the complete dynamic of our bills changed of what would pass and what wouldn't pass. So having a pro-2A guy chairing that committee got our constitutional carry passed, because most bills, people don't know this. They think it's just, a lot of people think it's just a bill goes forward and everybody votes on it and it either passes or dies. Most bills are killed in committee before it ever even gets to the floor. And that's what the Democrat chair that was of that committee was doing, was killing a lot of our bills. And now he's probably doing it on behalf of somebody that wanted those bills killed, and it's probably why he was put as the chair to begin with. But Speaker Phelan, when he became the chair, or when he became the speaker, he appointed James White on there, and James White had written the constitutional carry bill. It wasn't his version that passed this time, but he had submitted it several sessions, and so it's an alignment of several things. It's one is having the activists pushing up, and then it's having the legislators appointed to the right chairs that are going to support our bills. So,
at some point, I also feel like you guys should let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah, and that's I would say this is probably going to be a quieter session for us. Like we're kind of looking at basically what bills can we refine the law to recognize gun rights better, instead of trying to make a giant change on something. So, yeah. Okay. So I think we're doing pretty good right now.
And, y'all doing great things.
Yeah,
and just
my predecessor, Rachel, which you knew, Rachel Malone, she did
that's one of my heroes.
Yeah, she did a fantastic job, and I've got really big shoes to fill. I'm on year 1. She was on year 6 or 8 or something like that. So hope people don't judge me too hard on my first year compared to her last year. But she set a good example for me to follow, so I'm trying to do my best to follow that too. Yeah.
I used to shoot running guns with her.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to talk about this. Okay, I can think of 3 reasons to have guns: self-defense, hunting, and then shooting sports.
Yeah, and sports is my favorite part of it.
Well, good. Okay,
hunting's close though.
And it's such a huge spectrum. I'm participating in the running guns, which is like we call them a centerfire biathlon.
Yeah, yeah.
And you do too.
Yes, sir.
I've done the Pecos.
Yeah.
I've done Waco and done Houston.
Did you do the West Tex over in Fort Davis yet?
No, not yet.
That's a really good one.
It's a fun deal, but you're running 3 to 6 miles and you're shooting between 2 yards and 500.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great sport. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's the one I do, but you're more acquainted with the shooting sports. What's the whole spectrum here?
Yeah. I got into IDPA originally, and this probably sounds goofy. I was living on a ranch.
International Defensive Pistol Association.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I was living on a ranch, and we were just very fortunate to get to live on this ranch. The person who had owned it had passed away. They didn't want the house to deteriorate with nobody in it. They invited us to come live out there. And so I got to shoot pigs all the time. Had 7 miles of dirt road every day, leaving in and out to look for pigs. Mm-hmm. And anyways, I'd been hunting pigs for a long time, but this was like a more everyday thing. Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, I would see like a herd run by. I'd get out my vehicle and I would stalk in on them. And I would always get 1 or 2, and then they're gone, right? They're in the woods. You can't get them. And I'm thinking, my transitions suck. Like, I've got to get better at transitioning. And so I got into the IDPA.
Target to target.
Yeah, and I thought I need to do something dynamic, which is dynamic shooting, like IDPA, moving and shooting. And I got into my first match, and I thought, I'm pretty good at guns.
And then you learned.
Yeah. It was humbling very quickly, because I think there were, I can't remember the exact number, I think there were 40 or 43 shooters in that classification that I was in. And when the results came out, I got 37th.
We've had Greg Garrett on before, and my goal when I first started shooting was to shoot half as fast as Greg.
Yeah. That's about where I'm at. It's half as fast as the fast guys.
That's fine.
Yep. We do the matches now, and And now I'll be an RO, range officer, on some of the stages. And anyways, I'll go through, and then I'll come back and RO. And the fast guys are twice as fast as I am. It's amazing how fast those guys move.
Gives you something to aspire to.
Yeah. And I don't know how they do it, because in my head, I think I'm moving and shooting fast, and then you see what they're doing, and it's just mind blowing. So. And
we have several clubs here in Houston that are doing that on weeknights. So that's one sport for folks.
Yeah. So I did the IDPA. You got the Western style shooters.
I've never done that.
So I haven't either. I've watched it. I saw a video. Was it Tim Kennedy or somebody the other day posted on Instagram, and the guy is very much not in shape. That's the nice way to put it. And but I mean, he's like smoking all the targets. It's the kind of shooting is a sport where you can be really out of shape and do certain types of matches and compete.
Not so much
at
at the
level.
running guns, though.
Yeah. No, the running guns. I'm about 20 or 30 pounds overweight right now for a running gun.
That doesn't help.
So, no, and so I'm getting smoked, and I'm finding out I've let myself go more than I wanted. So I'm trying to get back into the shape. We have the ranch that I was just talking about that I lived on. There's a running gun coming up on that ranch. It's a small world. I didn't connect the race series guy to this ranch owner or anything. Just somehow he made the connection and told me, hey, we're doing one in Cherokee. And then he sent me the address, and I looked it up, and it was the ranch I lived on, the north half of the ranch. Wow. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But yeah, so that's a lot of fun. Rachel, mentioned Rachel. She was RO, and we were up in Oklahoma in Pawnee at a match. And I show up, and I was a volunteer for GOA at the time, and so she's kind of is my boss, I guess. And anyways, I get to stage 3, and so I have a friend, that SF guy, who he's like, you're going to run the whole match, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to not look like a wimp in front of this guy.
We'll see.
And I was wearing these are limb shoes. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they have a very minimalistic shoe, and that's what I normally run. And when I hike on the Appalachian Trail, same thing. I run very minimalist shoes, and he looks at my shoes and like, you're going to run in this? And I'm like, yeah, I run all of them in this. And he's like, well, you got tougher feet than I am. So I'm thinking, oh, here's a SF guy compliment me on how tough my feet are.
No, he's warning you.
Yeah, and I get out there, and it was 3 miles of dirt road that we had to run. To basically, we were jumping on different properties down this dirt road. It was 1-inch gravel that was a sharp rock that they had laid down, and my feet were killing me. But I was running really good, keeping a good pace, passing people up all the way to stage 3. And this race was not well organized, so you would have to give them your phone, and then they would time you with your phone while you're shooting. Well, Rachel is the RO on stage 3, and it's a simple stage. It's you're shooting at 300 yards and 500 yards, and you're just going back and forth 3 times. Well, anyways, I go prone. I go to shoot the 300-yard, which is a chip shot, and what we do, and I can't hit the target. And I'm like, what is going on here? So then I start just spiraling. That's how I kind of figure out. And there's all brush behind the target, so I can't see a single miss at all. So I just start making a spiral all the way out, trying to figure out where my point of impact is. And 3 minutes go by. We get 3 minutes in the stage.
And then you're over.
Didn't hit a single target. And that's super embarrassing, because here's my boss, who is the head of GOA Texas. And then here's me, that's supposed to be a volunteer, that's also supposed to be a good shooter. And the rest of the match went downhill from there.
Did you knock your scope off or what?
It would ended up being I had an arrow mount. I don't know if you've heard of arrow, but they have this little J hook at the top of the mount, and I'd never thought of it. I kind of think of myself as having an engineering mind, but I had never even thought about that point on that scope being the weak point. And anyways, I mean, it's less than a 1/16 of an inch thick where that little J hook is, and it had cracked, and so my scope was just kind of floating back in there. And but anyway, so I went and had that fixed, and my buddy told me to get a Badger comm mount, and it cost significantly more, but I haven't had a single problem with a scope mount since then. So yeah.
Well, if anybody's listening out there, that's why I love running guns. It forces me to train.
Yeah.
And it is a severe test on your gear.
Yep.
So if your pistol or your rifle doesn't work, you'll find it.
Yeah. 2 months ago, we did a race where we had to swim through the creek was 6 feet deep. And,
oh yeah, they'll do that.
Swimming is kind of everybody has their strength physically that they do. Mine was pull-ups and swimming, and I get in the creek, and everybody else is like grabbing onto the ropes and trying to guide themselves across, and I just get in there and breaststroke across, and guys were losing. They were finding out that their mag holders don't hold their magazines very well, so there were guys that lost some really expensive STI mags, some Terran Tactical mags.
Still in the bottom of the pond there?
Yeah, and it's all mud down there, and I saw one girl, I feel bad for her, but her dad had, and she's probably 20, 21, something like that. Her dad had dropped some magazines, in the water, and he's trying to find them. She just jumps in with all her clothes on and starts trying to help him find them. And I was like, oh, that's commitment to your dad. So yeah, but I really like the running guns. It has shown me, like you said, the equipment. I've redesigned what I carry, how I carry it, and I feel a lot more confident. If apocalypse, whatever you want to get into, like I know that I can put gear on and that it's going to work for me in it. So yeah.
Yes, and it's also good for your humility.
Yep. Yeah.
So name some other sports. What else is?
There's USPSA, which our friend Andy, that we both know, competed in some. I was ROing a stage 2 weekends ago, and anyways, this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, this is my first match." He has a pink band on, so that's how we know that it's his first time in a run and gun match. And anyways, I was like, "Your first time?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I used to do USPSA back in the day."
Which is all pistol.
Yeah, and really fast shooting. You're not having to do any tactical stuff. Like, you're not worried about barriers or anything like that, and your reloads are different. Well, anyways, and he said it was 20 years ago he did the USPSA thing, and so we've had almost everybody come through this stage, and so we know the basic times of what everybody's going to shoot and who's the fastest guy. Well, he comes up and starts the stage, and he clears it out in 52 seconds, which is 4 seconds faster than the fastest guy I've ever
maybe
seen
he remembered a few things.
Yeah, I think he was sharking us or something. But anyways, he ended up doing really good in that match. USPSA is very good on a lot of things that could probably help me improve on how quick I'm shooting. Mm-hmm. But anyways, it's something I never really got into, but it's a really good one. And then you got a lot of guys getting into the 22 long range. Have you seen that?
No.
They're basically building these really expensive chassis guns with 22 long rifle.
Cheap ammo.
Yeah, cheap ammo, and I'm sure they're probably figuring out a way how to make it too expensive on ammo too. But they do a really good job shooting. It's a discipline. I think they're probably going out to only a couple of 100 yards, but your trajectory is probably matching what you would do at 1,000 yards with a 6.5 Creedmoor or something like that. And then the long range stuff, the PRS.
There's a couple places here in Houston where you can shoot out to 1,000 yards.
Yeah,
it's quite challenging.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It got real expensive real quick getting into it, but I was thinking about doing PRS matches, and the sport is evolving over the years, so you'll see like everybody kind of transition to this one thing that they're trying, and at the time they were transitioning to bags everywhere. So they would have like sandbags strapped to their arms, sandbags strapped to their thighs, and so when they get in position so they can hold steady, it just got to where it looked really goofy. It's like, hey, this has no real world application. You're not going to run around with bags attached everywhere on you. And then I think everybody's kind of wised up and gotten away from that. But
what I've learned, you take a little bit from each sport,
yep,
and then apply it to your world. But
it's.
And then what about shotguns? I mean, that's something we do here in Houston a bunch. We're always doing charity clay matches.
Yeah, it's the gentleman's sport, I guess is the way you look at it. Sporting clays is what I like. So Lee, our Texas administrator, she her kids are shotgun competitors. One of her sons was 4th in Peru at the, what do they call that, the World Cup or something? I can't remember what they call that match, but anyways, they're very high level shooters, and I stacked the deck one time on a match. So I'm the weak link in this match. We got invited to this charity shotgun sporting clay event. And so I got her son and 2 really good female shooters that compete at a high level, and then there's me. And I thought, okay, they'll be able to make up for my lack of shotgun skills. I am the world's worst at shotgun, I feel like. And anyways, we go to this match, and we ended up like 4th place, where I thought we were going to clean house with first place. But I was so bad, it took us down to 4th. So pretty bad, but yeah. Shotgunning is a very interesting world. I have a friend that is a Marine Corps sniper, and he won't touch a shotgun. He said it'll mess him up on rifle. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but
you got to embrace diversity.
Yeah, I would like to get better at shotgun. I'm just terrible at it. That's one of the reasons I don't do 3-gun. And then I'm looking at the gear.
3-gun. We missed that. So, okay, that's another event.
Yeah, so our biathlon stuff, we like to do the running guns or 2-gun. The 3-gun.
There's no running.
Yeah, no running.
You walk between stages, but there's
and I think
6 to 10 stages. Yeah, I used to shoot them with out at impact zone.
Are you fast at reloading on a shotgun?
I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm not.
No, I've watched the good guys do that, but to me, I'm not too concerned with it. I'm there to practice.
Yeah, the best shot I ever pulled off was we were out we were coyote hunting, trying to call out coyotes and foxes, and one night we were on this ranch and we were heading back, and couple of us were standing up in the back of the pickup as it's driving along. That's what I love about small town Brady. But anyways, I see this fox real quick, and the vehicle's moving, and I jump out of the pickup, and I come running around this tree, and I had an 870 shotgun on me with number 4 buck. And anyways, I come around this tree, one shot, take this fox down, and all my friends are like, "That's the coolest shot ever." So that's like my only good shotgun story.
Darn it!
But past that, yeah.
I'm going to challenge our listeners. If you are a shooter, you already know this. But if you're not, I challenge you to go to almost any one of these matches, any one of these events, and you will find the most welcoming crowd.
Yeah, I
find that interesting in shooting.
You'll find the smartest guys in society there. You'll find like some of the most successful guys in different ventures there, and then you'll find normal people like me there. And everybody is best friends.
Yeah, but you'll feel welcome.
Yeah.
And so whether you want to, so any of the three, whether you want to do shooting sports, self-defense, or hunting.
Yeah.
It's just
for me,
I like the people.
Yeah. Getting training, we talk about that a lot. We talked about this a little bit earlier is I do encourage everybody to get training. And I think one of the ways is to get some basic training, but these shooting sports will advance you way further, I think, than I say that. The shooting sports will advance your ability significantly.
Well, you get some training. And Texas is the place.
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend,
Andy
Butler. He just started Fast Iron, and he's training everything from SWAT to civilians.
Yeah.
You're wearing Paul Howe's hat.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite trainers out of Nacogdoches. I encourage people to go up there.
Yep.
And that's for self-defense and tactical stuff. Right here in town, we have Brian Hoffner. I don't know if you know Brian, but he's an ex-Houston police officer and trainer. And
I met Meredith the other day.
No, Meredith, he's a SWAT officer here in Houston who used to shoot competitively with us back in the day.
He's 50, and I texted my wife, and I said, I want to look like this guy when I'm 50.
Oh, he's the most frightening human being I've ever met.
That's awesome. So, yeah.
Super friendly guys, though.
Yeah.
And so take a class and then go shoot a sport. You'll get better at it.
Yeah. You want to talk about politics any?
Yeah. What are you up to? What are you thinking?
So one of the things that I've learned through this is there's really good people in politics, but there are also people who won't stand up that get elected often, and they start doing the go along to get along. And that's what we as citizens and activists try to do, is try to force these people to...
So where are you going with this?
I don't know. So I ran for Congress because I looked at, this was back in, I ended up running for Congress in the race was 2019, 2020. Mm-hmm. And it was an open seat, but I had been watching our congressmen since 2008. I had gotten out of the Air Force in 2008, and you remember the TARP bailout. And at the time, this seemed like a significant amount of money. I think it was $1 billion was the TARP bailout to all the banks that had made some very terrible financial choices.
Right, we're propping up businesses which should go bankrupt because of, the proper thing to happen in a competitive environment.
Yeah,
they're supposed to go bankrupt and make room for other people.
I'm a free market, laissez-faire guy. I deserve to go broke if I make bad decisions.
Right. Well, the building you're sitting in, the only reason we're here is because somebody ran their business poorly. We bought the building, and now we're doing advanced research and podcasting.
Yep, it's pretty amazing.
Okay. So
looking at your shop's
I'm anti-TARP too. So.
Yeah. Well, I watched our congressman do that, and I had just gotten out of the Air Force, and I was like, what is this guy doing? And so I started looking more and paying attention to him. And Ron Paul had kind of ignited that fire. So I start looking at his voting record, and I start looking at voting scores. So a bunch of the groups that are scoring representatives up in Congress, they'll say, oh, this guy's 80% conservative. But I'm looking at the bills that they're judging to determine whether they're conservative or not, and the scoring system's off. Like they're taking some very soft bills that have no real weight on conservative or liberal positions or anything like that. And so let's say you voted 10 times on conservative on some really soft bills. But let's say that this one really negative anti-freedom, anti-conservative position you vote on. Well, so now you've got one vote liberal and then 10 votes conservative, right? They're weighting that very important bill with the same amount of importance as the 10 insignificant bills.
So does GOA have its own weighting?
We do. We have, that's on the federal side, and they have a score for it. I haven't looked into it. Next time that our elections come around, I came in right at the end of the elections for this year, so I'll learn that system as we go. But it's basically you need to weight the important bills more heavily than you do a bunch of the insignificant bills. So my congressman, I think it was Heritage or somebody like that, was saying he was 80% conservative at the time, but yet here were these really important critical bills that he was voting for that was hurting our economy, like the TARP bailout, and then the this, I don't know where you stand on this, but the farm bill. At the time, that was...
I don't believe in subsidies.
Yeah, same here. I'm an anti-subsidy guy, and you hurt everybody else in the economy whenever... You hurt the people that are getting the subsidies, too, in a lot of ways, so...
And, when we subsidize our agriculture to a degree that we export subsidized products and bankrupt Mexican farmers, which started the exodus.
Yeah,
unintended consequences.
A lot of the problems we're dealing with is because we created them years ago.
Indeed.
And so I watched this congressman, and he would come into the town halls, and I would bring up these questions on these bills. And I can tell you this, congressmen do not like being called out in their town halls. They want to come in and have this nice hoorah.
Just a baby.
Yeah, and that's what I see a lot of times is they'll come into a town hall and then they'll bring some well-known influencers or politicians to the meeting too, and then they'll all congratulate each other. That's how they introduce each other and oh, this guy's working so hard for you. Most of the people in the room aren't questioning it and be like, oh, look at this, we're all have great leaders here. 80% of the people don't like how Congress is run, but 80% of the people think their congressman is fighting for them. So
there's something wrong with this.
Yeah, I made that statistic up, but I think it's true. So no, I heard it somewhere else. But so what it is marketing. This guy would come in and he would tell everybody everything they wanted to hear, and then somebody might ask, "Hey, why did you vote for this?" And he would blame it on somebody else. He's like, "Oh, it's the Senate's fault. We knew it wasn't going to get through, so I had to vote this way." And people were just, oh, okay, and not question it. And then I would bring up some points and question it. And I'm pretty sure he strongly disliked me. And then he announced in 2019 that he wasn't running. I was working at the shop. I was working on a truck, and it came over the radio. Congressman Mike Conaway is not going to run for office, or has announced he's retiring.
It inspired you.
I knew at that moment I was running against the guy, and or running for that seat. And I had interviewed people that had ran against him before because I'd watched him very closely. And after interviewing those guys, I was like, you know what, I think I need to wait. I want to challenge the guy, but all these guys that have the same beliefs as me and come from the same kind of backgrounds were only getting 20% of the vote, and he was getting 80%. Anyways, the open seat came up. I jumped in the race, and then there was 10 candidates total. There were actually 11. One backed out. And so I was going up against, I'm from Brady, Texas. People don't know who I am. I don't have a background that has influence on anything. And I get in the race. We ended up with 10 of us total. One guy pops up. It's all perfectly timed, right? Like this was all pre-planned before Mike Conaway even announced his retirement. But it appears that they intentionally put this. He's an F-22 pilot. They intentionally put him into the National Security Council, so his resume looks better, so he can come into the district and say, "Look, I was advisor for Donald J. Trump on national defense." And anyways, you don't go there 3 months and do that, whatever.
So
but
you weren't in with the cool crowd.
I was not in with the cool crowd, and but here's what my strength was I understood the Constitution. I understood the proper role of government. I was a Bastiat, Milton Friedman kind of guy, and I could get on stage and basically in a way that, and I'm not saying I'm the smart guy on stage or anything like that, but you look at Milton Friedman or Ron Paul, when they get up and talk, they have a way of saying it in terms that laymen like me can understand it. And so that's what I was able to do, was get on stage and just be like, here's the problem with this bill. Here's where our congressman had supported it. And I was able to give very simple but detailed answers on the issues. And some of the answers that people would give were very generic. And at one point in the race, it got to where we kind of all became friends, most of us in this race. And they would be like, you know what, we're going to go with Wes's answer. And then they would just sit back down. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So,
but you lost.
I lost, but I didn't lose in the bigger picture.
So you don't regret it. That's good.
No, yeah.
Because we got to have people like you that keep trying.
Yeah. I ended up third place out of 10 candidates. The winner spent $1.7 million.
Did you outspend him?
No. I spent $27,000. It was a $3.4 million total race, and and I spent $27,000, and I beat some good guys that spent $300,000 plus on each of their races.
Darn, that's bad news. That's just enough to encourage you to do it again, isn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder if that's intentional. But the sad part was that congressman had never voted in his life, or that guy that I lost to had never voted in his life, and now he's our congressman. Because what it turned out is it didn't. What is your base population looking at? They weren't digging into his back. The only thing they saw is, oh, this guy's an F-22 pilot.
And drive a jet.
Yeah, and they think Tom Cruise. And I was an ICBM guy, so in my mind, I'm thinking like, hey, I'm ICBMs. That's pretty cool too. But it doesn't carry the same weight in public opinion on impressiveness, I guess. But that guy had never voted in his life.
How's he doing?
I have some complaints, so I hope he will turn it around and start following the what I believe the proper role of government is supposed to look like in voting and taking a stand. But that goes back to, you watch all the people that pulled favors for him. Now he has to help those people out. So he is. It's
not encouraged.
Yeah, the question is, are you serving your people, or are you serving those people that helped you win this race? They helped him get a Donald J. Trump endorsement. They helped him with his fundraising. They helped with the whole setup.
So what do we do?
My goal, reason I stayed in this, is I feel like if we keep trying to expose it, and it's not just going to be just me, it's going to take more and more of us to expose what's going on. And that's where knowing the voting records come in handy. Like me getting up on stage, I was able to say, hey, look, only 40 out of 535 members of the House and Senate actually have conservative voting records. And here's the scorecard that shows that. That kind of opened a lot of eyes, because a lot of people didn't know the voting records or anything like that. So this scorecard, we're talking pre-Biden, before Biden took office, John Cornyn was rated 33% on it. My congressman was at 36%. Not the one I lost to, but the one prior to that. Kevin McCarthy was at 36% conservative. Let's see here. Mitch McConnell's down in the 30s. And then on the other end of that, the good side of it, Chip Roy is sitting at 100%. Ted Cruz is sitting at like 92%. Louis Gohmert was at 96%. Lance Gooden, it was his freshman year, or freshman session. But anyways, he was, I think, at 100% or something like that. He's out of the DFW, or east side of DFW area. Anyways, you go to those guys, and you can tell there's this drastic scale of where they're really voting at on the issues. So, and it's real simple. The scale I'm talking about is on Conservative Review. It's called libertyscore.com. And basically, it's a weighted system. They take only the top 50 bills. Instead of looking at all the other insignificant bills, they take the top 50 bills over the last 6 years and say, which position did you take on this? And so now, you, in my opinion, you have a true scale of on the important matters, where are they truly voting at? And so you got Rand Paul, I think, is sitting at 92% or 94%. We have, I think, one Republican that's worse than the Democrats on the scoring. It's just Susan Collins out of Maine, I think, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And once you start realizing all these talking heads that you see on TV, the politicians that get on TV and love to do the talking points, go look at their voting record, and it doesn't match a lot of times what they're saying on the TV.
And one more time, where do you go to look for this?
That's at Liberty Score. It's conservativereview.com, and it's their Liberty Score. Now, here's the interesting change. So Biden took office, and so all the scores went up, because it's easy just to vote no against a bunch of Biden's bills.
I see.
And so you're going to see that score increase. They're going to look more conservative because Biden is the president. Under Trump, they were voting very liberal, a lot of them were, and getting away with it because they could still go back to their districts, give conservative talking points, whatever. But under Biden, the bills were so bad that it kind of changed the scale a little bit. Now I'm curious to see, after Chip Roy, who I'm a huge fan of, after Chip kind of held McCarthy's feet to the fire and forced him to accept some rules for the House, how the session was going to go, you're gonna see a different scale of the bills that are being put forward. And so I think you might even see the scales get a little more conservative on it. But there's some things, like there's a bunch of omnibus bills. They can, and we talk about the weighted scale, like this bill weighs more than these soft bills.
Right.
But now you've got these omnibus bills that are coming in with terrible package with the red flag laws built into it. Dan Crenshaw from this area voted for it. The guy.
What was he thinking?
Yeah. The guy that, and this one bill is terrible. And I know that there's some Republican congressmen that told the other Republican congressmen in Texas, don't vote for this bill. It's got red flag laws built into it. It's going to force our women to sign up for the draft. It's going to force the bases to change their name. So Fort Hood has to change its name right now because of what was in this bill, because of the woke idea that Fort Hood being named after Confederate generals now all of a sudden makes Fort Hood a racist base or something. I don't know. But so now they're going to have to change it to Fort Cavazos. It's just kind of a ridiculous thing, but they were warned, hey, this is a bad bill. They still voted for it. So, yeah, now they may have, like the guy I lost to, I think, has a 78% conservative voting record. But then now I put it on the scale of, okay, there's 212 roughly Republican members. Where does he rank in that 212 category? So now he's sitting at 89th. Based on the Cook's Partisan Index, our district is the second most conservative district in the country, but yet he's ranked at 89th. So that's not matching up on what do your constituents want and what are you doing over there. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, and I'm probably always looking for the angle to find where they're messing up, which may not be the best. We also need to be giving positive, whenever they're doing something right. So, Yep. So that's one of the reasons that I'm still in this fight and trying to make sure that we hold legislators who say one thing and do another accountable.
Well, it sounds like you might not have the seat, but you're still working within the system to accomplish some of your goals. So that's good. You know, I do the same thing. I've gone and testified in Austin and Washington. And my theory is if you don't participate, you can't complain.
Yeah, it's I look at I feel, because there's a part of me that wants nothing to do with any of this stuff. I'm sacrificing my personal income in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. I pay my own way to Washington.
Yep, and anyways, it's not been easy for my wife running for office. Like, we don't get paid to run for office.
Even if you'd have won it, you would have only made $4,000 a year.
Yeah, and then you're trying to figure out, how do I balance, our family business. My dad depends on me at the family business quite a bit to be there to help out. And doing this job, the GOA job, I'm not there for this session, and I feel really guilty about that. But the thing that is always in the back of my head is, if I quit and just walk away and turn a blind eye to this, it's my fault what my kids have to endure, what my grandkids have to endure. So, so I have that guilt on me, which weighs on me more, I guess, than my financial income or anything like that.
Dude, we need idealistic people like you.
Yeah.
So how do they find GOA? Let's say maybe we convince somebody today. Maybe they might join.
Gun Owners of America can be found, especially our Texas version, can be found at goatexas.com. Real easy to remember, like GOAT, greatest of all time. But
that's us.
Yeah, no, goatexas.com, and then gunowners.org is our national website.
What's it cost to join?
It costs $25, unless you catch me. Life is $1,000. So here's the great thing: if you catch me at a gun show or a table somewhere, it's $900 for the life or $20. So we have a discount when we're doing.
And then you give us free magazines afterwards.
Yes, sir. Yeah, lifetime members. I have a box full of Magpul magazines that we put the GOA Texas logo on, and if we run into a life member, I hand them a magazine. So if you're a life member and you see me, let me know. But that's how the first time we met, which is really cool because Andy had told me about you, and then we run into each other at the Safari Club. So that was I'm glad to meet you and get this opportunity also. On GOA side, we've had a lot of wins on the Supreme Court level that we've been involved in. Second Amendment Foundation's really good. And so GOA's work closely with those guys. They kind of lead the charge on a lot of the Supreme Court level stuff. And we've sued a lot of states whenever they violate our rights. And then they've gotten more involved in state legislature, and that's where I come in on the Texas side. And I'm really just kind of picking up where Rachel left off. So Rachel did a fantastic job, and now I'm trying to carry on what she did. So, yes, sir.
What did we miss today? What did I forget to bring up? This is kind of a broad subject, so.
Yeah, we covered a lot of things. I think we covered economics. We covered politicians, guns, shooting sports, activism. And that's what I'd probably like to say is even if guns aren't your thing, find what is, and then find a group that's advocating for that at the Capitol.
Oh yeah, I've never.
As long as it's what I agree with.
I've never testified about guns. I've testified about Texas, and tariffs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just be one-dimensional.
Bastiat. When you say tariffs, that comes to mind. You know who Frederick Bastiat is? He wrote The Law. One of my favorite books, and it's kind of like my political Bible. And anyways, in there he was looking as a Frenchman in 1850 at the U.S. economy. And he said, he was talking about how amazing America is and what we've accomplished. And he said, but there's two things that are going to destroy America. And he said slavery and tariffs. And in 1850, he had the wisdom to see that. And anyways, we've got rid of slavery, which is fantastic. Now we need to address how we deal with import, export, and everything else there. So,
and then Trump started the tariffs. Well, he didn't start it, but he definitely put a few in place, and then Biden's turned it into an art form.
Yeah,
I am, as a free market capitalist, I'm absolutely against it. But
yep. I sometimes feel like the more I get into this, one of the ways I compare this is like government's like an onion. The more layers you pull back, the worse it smells. But I also kind of look at this like a bowl of spaghetti. And you're pulling on one side, but you can't see what you're pulling on the other side. Mm-hmm. And every time government tries to fix something, they're making something else worse, and they tend to end up making things more worse than they do better now. They're operating so far outside of the proper role of government that they're just band-aiding band-aids instead of getting back to the core principles we're supposed to follow. And what's amazing about that is the insight our founding fathers had. They were very well intelligent young people, that a lot of them were young, and they were well studied. They understood a bunch of different forms of government, and they were able to come together in Philadelphia and eventually put together what we call the Constitution, which is amazing. Yeah, and there's a really good movie. What was it called? A More Perfect Union, and it's a movie filmed in the 90s, I think, and that kind of documents it's modern actors, but anyways, they're documenting the Philadelphia Convention, how they're kind of debating back and forth the Constitution and how it's supposed to go. And then one of my favorites, if you watch this in the proper timeline, so if you watch the John Adams HBO series, it's like eight episodes, probably 2 hours each. But if you follow that, it kind of covers the whole life of John Adams. But then you go and watch that More Perfect Union, and you see because John wasn't really involved much in the Constitutional Convention or anything. He had some input through letters and whatnot, but then you kind of see how all of that stuff is influenced into the Constitutional Convention. It's pretty amazing. And then you find writings where John and Thomas Paine and them had advocated for, here's what our government foundation should look like, and then most of that ended up in the Constitutional Convention whenever they did that. So it's pretty amazing. It's like, what are the odds?
Oh, I think of that all the time.
Yeah, it's
I'm glad you ended on a positive note, because ours is the worst system in the world except for all the others, and so there is hope, and you do need to work within the system.
Yeah, there's good politicians too. I know I come across negative, but there are a lot of great politicians that want to do the right thing, and that's really what we do. Is we just want people to keep their campaign promises to the people. So.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I tell you what, we probably ought to get you back, because yours is a dynamic world. And
yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for showing me the tour of your facility. That's amazing what y'all do in there. So yeah,
robots are great.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.